emails, rad@radradio.com, and therefore Kevin Hughey, super attorney, who is here with us in studio. Good morning, Kevin.
Hello.
Kevin's from Hughey Phillips LLP. Now, we have a couple of big topics we want to get to, both of which I think are near and dear to you. Well, one of them I know you're really into. So I want to flip this up a little bit. We did get a couple of emails that I want to start with some questions, including some that are kind of topical, like this one from Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Says, do you have to fill out this census thing? I was minding my own business, sitting in my underpants last night when I got a knock on the door. No one knocks on my door, so I didn't move. Then another knock. Threw on some clothes, and it was a census dude asking if I had a minute. I told him it's not a good time. He starts filling out this form to give me and says, they're going to keep sending people out here if you don't fill it out. Just a word of warning. The form does say it's required by law to fill it out. What happens if I don't?
I have no idea.
They do get pretty threatening, though. I had so many that were sent to the house, and they're like, required by law.
I'm glad you just read that part of it, because I didn't even know it was required by law.
I don't know if it is. It's just, it'll say it on the envelope.
So, just in case, because I knew I was Pearl Harboring you with this question, and this isn't exactly your area of expertise.
I'm sinking right now. Thank you.
No, you tell me what because I went online and I did some research. So technically, not responding to the census in whole or in part is technically illegal, although the last criminal charge of a non-response in the census took place in 1970 when a dissident publicly announced that he wouldn't respond to the census and was fined $50. So their version
Those
of
hippies.
Social media, however they got it out back then, and they got it. So my understanding, because somebody, I think it was my wife, somebody asked me about it, and I said, they're not going to do anything about it. It's one of these things where technically it's illegal, but they don't enforce it. But they are. Dawn's right, and so's that guy. They're just going to they're going to bully you more and keep knocking on your door.
Well, and here's the crazy thing: I opened the envelope again because it's like by law, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, at this point we received 2, and you can go online. So I'm like, gosh, let me just do this. So I go online and I fill it all out. It's a nothing burger, but 3 cycles of mail. It took over the course of 3 weeks, basically, for them to realize I did this online, because they kept sending notices, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I have filled this out.
What you're not suggesting that the government is inept at talking to itself within its departments, are
very
you?
much so. I can understand one, because there's a little crossover from the time you go online and maybe they had already mailed something out to you. But then continuously, I'm like, oh, really? And some people might feel so afraid that they'll just fill out another one and mail it in. And now you've gone for both households.
The fear is why most people don't fill them out, because they wonder what the government's really doing with them.
They don't ask you anything that they don't already know, which is what is annoying about it.
Don't they, though?
Well, I mean, they want to know your gender. They want to know if you're white, Hispanic, or black.
And what's in the form or what's online when you log in.
They want to know how much money you make. I mean, you can get all this from the IRS, people.
I'm starting to think about the days when they used to vote the graveyard.
What?
When they used to vote in elections.
Here, you'll like this email a lot better. It's from Erin.
Hi, Erin.
She says, I want to say thank you for recommending an amazing man and attorney. After years of listening to Mr. Hughey on the Rad Radio, I finally decided that I needed to up my business game and send the law office an email. I didn't expect it, but I got to speak personally to Mr. Hughey.
Wow.
And even though he gave me lots of homework, he put my mind and heart at ease. My words can't thank him enough. Well, but your money could. So please let him know that he is absolutely appreciated, and pretty much brought tears to my eyes at the end of our conversation. Do you remember Erin? She mentioned she's a craft supplier of something.
Last night I spoke with her.
Oh.
Thank you, Erin.
That's very nice.
Sweet.
Did you bill her? I mean, this is the whole point.
I double billed her, man.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, she doesn't know that yet, but
Then we got this one from Jeremy. Says, Mr. Hughey, I know that the shutdowns and pandemic have caused a lot of problems on the courts, and last time you were on, you said they were still a mess. My question is, what effect does this have on various statutes of limitations? Does the clock stop when the court is shut down? There's an interesting question. And how badly is the court messed up exactly? You mentioned that violent crime is given priority. What sort of delay can be expected moving forward involving other matters? So there's really kind of 3 questions in there.
I'll take the middle one there. It's not violent crime. Criminal cases, period, have to take priority because there are constitutional requirements, speedy trial and all that good stuff. Civil cases don't have those. So you have to clean out the criminal trials first before you even get to the civil cases. The statute of limitations are told, essentially. What that means, like when the courts were closed over the summer, the court order was that for this period of time, we are on court holiday. So when the court has a holiday, like any of our regular holidays, if there's a filing deadline on that day, the next day it's due. So for that period of 2 or 3 months, basically anything that was due after that.
So, and for people that don't know, the statute of limitations is how long since something happened can you still charge for it? But that wouldn't apply because isn't that only criminal, or are there civil statutes?
Every cause of action for civil cases too has a limitations period.
So it is what he's suggesting is everything's just put on hold. What about his general question of how badly is the court messed up exactly?
It's bad.
And do you have a guess on what sort of delay can be expected moving forward involving non-criminal? Like if you had something in the hopper that's civil, that isn't criminal, any guess about how awful it might be?
It's so bad I can't even develop a guess or a prediction. The problem is every jurisdiction is different. So every jurisdiction, every county is setting their own pace at going at this. So we have a trial, for instance, set for September 1st, I think, or the first week of September. We have no idea if it's going to go.
Oh, jeez.
You can't call the court clerk because they have no idea.
We had a taste of this. Was it yesterday? The poor kid who wrote in, he wanted to know about he had a speeding ticket, and he wanted to know about going to traffic court. And he'd never been, do I need a lawyer and all that? But then people start saying, well, wait, is it even open? And as we talked about it, every single county, there's a different answer. In Reno, they're doing it all on Zoom. Sacramento County, we were told that they were doing a traffic court at the jail. And it's like literally call the county, and if you're lucky enough you can get a hold of somebody, you might get an answer.
What a mess.
Hello, Adam. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
What's up?
Hey, I'm a small business owner here in the Sacramento Foothill area of a pool and spa company. I got a notice yesterday that I'm being sued because my website is not ADA compliant for the seeing impaired.
Oh.
And the gentleman, it's a frivolous lawsuit from out of Riverside, is where it was filed, and is seeking $4,000 per instance he was not able to log on to my website. Is there anything I can do to protect myself or try and get this to go away?
Offer them $500. Those cases are shakedowns. They're the most loathsome bottom-feeding attorneys. They're called accessibility cases. They go to commercial facilities or premises where there's a small step to walk in the door, and then they sue because if they're in a wheelchair, you can't get in. It's a total racket. They sue everybody for the same amount. They demand the same amount. They're expecting to recover from you about $1,000 maybe. It's complete nuisance value. They're just despicable.
But as an attorney, you would advise any business owner just pay them off to make them go away because they will keep filing and they will keep racking up fees and such.
Right, and his claim is probably legitimate because the accessibility laws are very broad. It's a very heavily regulated area, and if your website is not accessible, then you're probably violating a provision.
Here's an email that actually made me think, hey, I haven't asked Kevin about that, so we're going to ask you together. Jeff wrote in, says, last year, Kevin Hughey expressed interest in a band, and he had talked a little bit about getting involved in the music industry. More than that, you actually got involved in the music industry. With all the damage that our society's reaction to COVID has caused, how does he believe the shutdowns of businesses everywhere will affect the local musicians' ability to perform live in the future? I've already seen a local favorite place in Oakland get shut down early in this pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. Are you still involved in a music label?
I am. I'm told that, well-informed, LA has cleared out for the most part because the musicians, especially the hired guns, they can't afford to live. There is no work for them. I mean, these are the people who make their money on touring. The manager of one of the few major acts that we've spoken with is predicting 2023 before there's a live show again.
Dang.
2023.
Oh my gosh.
But now, do you have a definition of a live show? Do you mean like a packed live show, or what about concerts with social distancing, that kind of thing? Like, I mean, right now they're saying that right now we're 3 weeks from NFL coming back. The opening game at Arrowhead in Kansas City, they're saying they're going to have 12,000 fans in the stadium. It holds 80,000. You're not hearing any even well, I guess they can't justify the cost. Is that the issue?
Right.
So I've seen these pictures of events that are actually starting to take place in Europe, music festivals, where it's out in a field, wide open field like you normally see at a festival, but in the audience, the crowd area where it would be like the general admission pit, they actually have these grandstands, but like miniaturized. So it fits about 2 to 6 people. And so they're all sectioned out, spaced out with proper distancing. So that's your space. If you go there with your person or your people that you're sharing your COVID with, you can stand in that little box and enjoy the concert instead of being squished together. I mean, at face value, knowing like if I didn't if COVID wasn't happening and I saw that, I would be like, that's a great idea. Because then I'm not, sandwiched between people and I can enjoy the show a little bit better. But I mean, if that's what it's got to take, then I mean, I would do that too.
God, I hope they come up with something before 2023.
But I think the chances of maintaining a crowd like that is near impossible.
Yeah, they would just break the rules.
Here's one totally off subject before we get into the serious stuff. No name on it. It says, Kevin, you are awesome.
Awesome.
Tell us about your tattoos.
Oh, very cool. Huh.
Oh, we don't have enough time.
I mean,
there's a lot there.
You're sleeved on both arms. Is there a meaning behind every single thing there, or is there more of like one general meaning about why you have them?
Both.
But he's not going to share.
I'm sorry for the dead air there.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It has power when you say that, because obviously you don't want to share what they're about.
You shouldn't have to.
No, you don't have to. That's why we throw these questions at you.
They're nice.
Yeah. Now people are going to be
beautiful.
The problem is when you don't answer, they get more curious.
They do. They're
going to find out.
What they'll do is probably on the videos, right? You take the screenshot and then look at them really close, and they're going to try and figure out.
Could they?
What is the meaning?
Because I look at your arms all the time, and I'd have to really look at them closely to try to figure out what the connection to you as a person is or something.
Do you, Rob?
I do. No, you know what they're actually going to do, Don? They're not going to do any of that work. They're just going to start making stuff up.
That'd be more fun.
You're more right, because mine takes too much work.
Now, one more email before we get to the things we really want to talk to you about, because this one to me seems like this guy has a legitimate issue, and then he goes right to like the worst possible solution.
Oh.
I don't know. You tell me. It's from Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
It says, I have a roommate who rents a room from me in a house that I own. He keeps bringing over his girlfriend, and it's to the point that she's practically living at my house.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, gosh, yep.
Legitimate common problem, right?
Absolutely. Okay. I remember anyone I roommated with, there would be a few of us sometimes, we'd always have that complaint. Like, your boyfriend is here all the time. Pay up, buddy.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, though. In that case, because this is one step worse, you were all renting. This guy owns the house.
Yeah, that'd be even more infuriating.
Okay. Says, my roommate believes he has the right to have guests over anytime he likes. All legitimate. Here's his question for you, Kevin. Can I call the police and report the girlfriend as a trespasser?
We're going all the way to the police.
Aren't there some steps before that just not even legally, just as a human?
Yeah, these are the calls police love, right?
I was going to say, you probably get clubbed if you call the police when they got there for that. No, is the short answer, because he's already allowed her to be there as a permissive user. So he can't just throw up a red flag at some point and say, now you're not allowed to be here.
Oh, the letterhead, the homeowner.
Yeah.
Does he have to go through like full-on eviction at this point? I mean, I don't know that she's living there. She's just spending a lot of time there.
His remedy is to evict the roommate.
Oh, God.
So
you might need that money.
The residential leases have provisions in them about...
He'll get a new roommate in this market.
True.
That's right. Yeah. All-time lows.
Yeah.
They have provisions about guests, number of guests, time guests can stay, and all that good stuff. So he sounds like he probably doesn't have a lease with his buddy, but he should.
All right. Phone number is 888-989-9811. Two big things that have happened over the last week or so that involve the courts that we want to talk to you about, Kevin. I used the California Rifle and Pistol Association to kind of break down what this Ninth Circuit judge ruling was last week. They say the Ninth Circuit held that the entirety of California's penal code banning the possession, manufacture, importation, sale, transfer, and receipt of magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds is unconstitutional. We talked to Eddie from NorCal Gun Vault yesterday, and he confirmed his attorneys are telling him what's also written in here. You can't suddenly go out, though, and buy or sell magazines over 10 rounds in California today, because this goes back to some type of injunction that was already filed that maintains the stay. The Department of Justice's express position is that the ban on acquiring new large-capacity magazines is still in effect, pending further appeals. But what's the scope of this? What does this mean? Eddie thinks this is a really big decision, and it moves, if you're a gun dealer, in his case, pro-Second Amendment, in a very positive direction. Is it that big a deal?
It's groundbreaking.
Wow.
Yeah, this was an absolute home run for gun rights.
Nice.
So what's next? If we can't all run out and buy them, which the supply issue is a whole other issue, how is this so groundbreaking? Because what's going to happen now?
This judge, this panel of judges, oftentimes judges will give parties some direction to encourage them to either don't bother coming back, don't bother doing this again, or if you want to do this correctly, here's how you kind of do it. This decision is don't bother.
Wow.
I mean, it's a very strong decision.
Oh my gosh, this is great for California.
Does that so? And are they're basically saying to the Attorney General of California, don't appeal or don't ask for the 11-panel judge to come back?
They're saying, first of all, don't ever bring it before us again. And if you want to take it further, here's why you're going to lose. I mean,
Damn.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask. So through the appellate process, so that means there's a time limit for when California can do that, I assume. And if they don't appeal, then everything reverts to these things are fully legal. They could appeal, though, to what? What's left? The Supreme Court?
That's the next step.
Which would be an interesting move to do. But that's it. Those are their choices. Is either go back to the court that said don't bother or go to the Supreme Court.
They could ask the full Ninth Circuit, every judge, to sit and decide this. But based on the wording of this decision, I wouldn't waste a minute of time on that.
Which might be indicative of why the Attorney General Becerra has not done that yet. Because wouldn't you usually do that pretty much right away? If you've lost something you thought like, oh, if you got the other 8 judges, we're going to get this.
Yes, because if you're doing that, that means you believe that those 3 judges just got it wrong. Like they just missed something. But this decision is just go away.
How is it that, just the inner workings, this is just fascinating to me. How is it that 3 judges, it was 2-1 decision, right? How is it that 2 judges who write the decision can speak, quote unquote, for the other 8 to say don't even bother? How do they know? Do they consult with the other 8? How do they even know? Or are they just being so obnoxious that they hope to intimidate them out of doing it?
They, by rule of court, they get to hear cases on behalf of the circuit. It's a 3-judge panel. So the 3-judge panel speaks for the Ninth Circuit.
That's been decided upon with all the other.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow.
The big one that you and I talked about last week, and there's apparently something pending this Friday, is this Uber Lyft thing. And when you were on a couple trips ago, we talked about AB5, which was an assembly bill in California that had passed, which was written about Uber and Lyft, but you interpret it as it applies to almost everybody, meaning, break it down, everybody becomes an employee. There are no more independent contractors. So Uber and Lyft are hoping that a courtroom reprieve can spare them from shutting down in California on Friday. Right now they're saying they will shut down if they don't get a decision on Friday, as the companies await word from an appeals court whether they'll be able to delay having to abide by a new state law that officials argue requires them to reclassify drivers as employees entitled to worker benefits. This is because of what did the Superior Court do in San Francisco that has caused all this?
The Attorney General filed an injunction motion in San Francisco Superior requesting an order that Uber and Lyft comply with AB5.
So the Attorney General heard you on our show when we were pre-COVID and we were talking about this, and used Uber and Lyft as the target to say people aren't doing this. This you're supposed to turn everybody into employees, and he's the one that brought all this and said make them comply.
Correct.
And the court agreed?
Yes.
So now what?
I think that what happened here, Uber and Lyft had all their eggs in one basket. They were hoping that their lobbyists could make some headway here in the Capitol before this happened, but they couldn't. I think the COVID thing hurt them badly. This decision came before they could. The law is going to change. AB5 is going to be thrown out or substantially modified. It didn't happen for them fast enough, because if they are ordered to comply like this, if they ultimately have to comply, they're going under.
Oh, damn.
I mean, there's just no. If they have to make every single driver that is a contractor for them a formal employee, their entire business model is over.
Now, explain again, though, how you and I've heard others say this, you interpret this, though, to be much bigger than just them, that all of us are basically stuck with becoming employee. There's what is it? You talked about, there's the 3-factor test. But you say it applies to not just drivers, right? It applies to all workers. Is that because that's how the law is written, or you guys are all assuming in the legal field it applies to everyone, or it's been said it does?
By its language, it does.
It does,
and that's why it's going to be thrown out. So
the worker is the 3-factor test to determine if you're an independent contractor. Is this right? Is the worker is free from the hiring company's control and direction in the performance of work? The worker is doing work that is outside the company's usual course of business, and the worker is engaged in an established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed. And when we ran through these things a few months ago, you said, well, that's basically 95% of all people are going to immediately have to be employees. But when you say get thrown out, where, how, who? So we had a Superior Court that just said, yes, you have to abide by this. So now what?
Well, because AB5 is the law right now. It's still the law. Until somebody changes it, the court has to order compliance with whatever is current law.
So are you pointing to the election time that's going to get thrown out, or you're saying there is eventually a court way to get this thrown out?
It's going to happen in the legislature. I mean, the people who sponsored this know what a terrible mistake they made.
Yeah,
and there have been several working on it at the legislature.
Just with Uber alone and Lyft, the amount of job loss for those people, and how awful that they're getting caught in the crossfire before it's changed, and will they be able to make a comeback, after that?
And that's part of it, because there are a lot of people who want to be contractors. They don't want to be employees. So this was a miserably ill-conceived law. So
you feel like there's enough lawmakers that are already working to unwrite it? Because if do you know anything about this decision Friday? Like, have you heard anything? So Uber and Lyft are saying they'll shut down Friday if they don't get the decision they want. If that happens, that's when you're going to really see the crap hit the fan, because then it's not just about Uber and Lyft, it's about everybody. There's a whole bunch of people that don't even know what's going on, and they're going to wake up Saturday and try to get a ride, and they're like, what do you mean? That's when everything's going to blow up.
Right. And I mean, it's already happened for playhouses. I mean, actors, musicians. I mean, these are all people that ballet. I mean, those people can't work. So there are a lot of employers in industries who have already done that, who've just closed because the law says you now have to make all those people employees. They can't.
I wonder how many people even though understand the connection though between that rather than, they just closed because of COVID, because of the timing of all of this.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's that lack of outcry.
I would have just thought it was COVID, because this isn't top of mind for most people. The AB5, whatever. No. Not at all. It's all COVID.
And also, my understanding is a lot of people that technically should be abiding by this. This is what led the Attorney General to do this. They're not. A lot of business owners have not turned independent contractors into employees, so it hasn't affected a lot of people yet because it hasn't really been enforced yet, which is something we talked about the last time you were on when we talked about this, was exactly the enforcement arm of it.
Because a lot of people, if they did comply with it, would go out of business. They can't comply with it. I mean, that's the problem. And fortunately, the legislature recognizes what a disaster this is, so they are working on it. So nobody's going to be banging on your door from the Department of Labor anytime soon. I wouldn't advise somebody to operate contrary to law, but if they wanted to take their time with their internal changes, that would probably be wise.
So how does what's going on with the legislator jive with, there's a proposition on the ballot, there's Prop 22, which is supposed to allow the citizens to just vote this thing out, as I understand it. So what's going to happen first?
It'll be the vote. The people will vote this out if they're well informed enough. Then the legislature has to start over. Somebody will pick this up again. Probably not in the near future, because it's radioactive at this point. Nobody wants to touch it.
So if Prop 22 passes, it overturns AB5. But then you're saying there's enough losers that'll try to bring back a version of AB5 as lawmakers.
Likely.
What if Prop 22 fails? I mean, we've seen a lot of weird stuff get passed around the country and in the state of California. And I know this is very California specific, but this kind of crap, when it starts in California, can spread like wildfire, especially right to you in Nevada. What if they do a good sales job and Prop 22 fails? Does that then make AB5 the law of the state and it ain't going away?
That's exactly right.
No.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it does fail, because right now people are so distracted with other things. AB5 is, Don, you mentioned it's low on the depth chart right now.
Who knows about it?
So
Nobody.
We'll be stuck with the law.
Well, and the other thing too is you talked the sales job about it. How are they presenting it? Because sadly, most of us, when we go to vote, we're now we're reading the propositions, and we don't take the time beforehand to research what they actually are. We'll just take the synopsis as we're in the voting booth. So what is it? How are they presenting it? Because sometimes they hide it behind something that sounds really good. Oh my gosh, this will help so-and-so. And in actuality, it might help them, but it's going to screw all these people. So how's it going to be written up?
That's what both sides do when they write the ballots. Yeah, and they both have their own versions that they throw in there.
They do.
And I would say typically for something like this, you wait for a test case to come along. You wait for somebody to sue and then have a court throw it out. The AB5, the Uber case, is not like the Duncan case with the magazines, because there's a fundamental constitutional right involved with the Duncan case, right? So anybody who has a magazine has standing to sue. Not so with the case involving Uber. I mean, who's going to challenge law based on what? There's no right to be an independent contractor, right? There's no right for employers to hire independent contractors.
Yeah.
So
it's a luxury,
right?
I guess, yeah.
So it would be hard to find a good case. Lawyers look for a good test case, one they think they're going to win on, to bring it. I don't know what that would look like.
Have you heard what the because Dawn's of course completely right. There's a lot of bills that the way that they or propositions rather, the way they position them is they'll call them the funding for school bill. And because a certain money will go to schools, and everybody goes, "Oh, well, kids, especially after COVID," and it has nothing really to do with anything like that.
Why is my gas? Why are the prices so high? Well, that was hidden in there.
Yeah, no, actually, that was pretty overt in Prop 8, you dummies. Yeah, we're just going to give up our right for you to raise the price of gas as much as you want without a vote.
Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
At least that one was exactly it, right there in front of you, letting you know, let's do it. We want our gas prices really high.
Yes, I can believe it.
We're stupid.
Do you have any idea what the positioning on why people should vote against Prop 22 is going to be yet?
No, I don't. I mean, to me, it reminds me of the Greenpeace volunteers canvassing. They'll be on a corner, and you walk by, and they say, "Do you have a minute to stop the clubbing of baby seals?"
Oh man!
Oh my God.
What are you going to say? No? You're going to feel like a horrible human being. They do that on purpose. And it turns out the petition they have is to disallow plastic straws or something. Has nothing to do with clubbing baby seals, but you can't say no and keep walking.
So one of the things that I have found some people do when they vote, because nobody researches obviously, and even I'm not even sure how many people read what the sales pitch is, like Dawn's suggesting they do, is sometimes they just look at who's supporting it and who's against it. Now, of course, all of the chambers of commerce support getting rid of AB5. They support Prop 22. Yes, on 22, because Chamber of Commerce recognizes what you're talking about in terms of business. Why all the law enforcement? Everybody in law enforcement is supporting it. Do you know what the angle is there as to why they would all be on board? The California Police Chiefs Association, all the state sheriffs, the peace officers. I just saw that and turned my head and I said, I wonder what their role in this is.
I don't. It could be as simple as optics, like you're talking about. Maybe they had some nice donations to the pension fund by business owners. And
then people against it, overwhelmingly unions. All the unions are against Prop 22. Why?
They need employees. I mean, they make their money off employee wages, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're not a contractor, if you're an employee, that means you got to sign on to the union if you want that job.
Oh, my gosh.
And if you get that job, you got to pay.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. Hi, Randy.
What's up?
What's up? What's up?
Come on, Kevin.
What's up?
I won't do it.
You don't have to.
I don't have it in me this morning.
Good.
In light of everything else that's going on, I needed to say that. But I'm a Lyft driver, and there's a greater impact than just this bill. What about the people that, I mean, even though that the bars are closed, the people that have that call for a safe ride home, we're not going to be available. The people that need to get to dialysis, the people that need to get to methadone clinics, the seniors that need to get rides to and from their doctor's appointments. This has a really big impact in their psyche. It's amazing how the political world right now is hitting us in 2020 like this, as if we don't have enough to worry about.
Brandon just handed me his tinfoil hat. Is the cabbie industry behind this at all?
Oh.
Could be. I mean, you're going to see you're going to see a lot of yellow cars.
Yeah.
Again, right? They've disappeared because cabbies are employees of those various companies. Is that how they're protected, or?
Well, and Uber outclassed them. Nicer cars, more responsive, faster times to show up. I mean,
competition.
Right.
I mean, hello, that's how it works.
They just crushed them.
Yeah.
Hello there, Philip. Good morning.
How is this going to affect the shelter in place with like DoorDash, Uber Eats? People rely on this kind of stuff to get food delivered to their house.
They're all part of this Prop 22 thing as well. They all signed on. Instacart and everybody signed on with Uber and Lyft to write this thing.
And Uber is hedging its bets. It just bought Postmates. So there's that. He asked a good question though. Friday, Uber and Lyft say if we don't get this court order on Friday, we're shutting down. What's going to happen to Instacart and everybody else on Friday and Saturday and Sunday? Because aren't they going to have to start converting people to employees? They're going to shut down.
Oh
What?
my gosh.
I mean, how could they not?
Okay, people rely those as well with all of these. Uber, Lyft, the DoorDash, Postmates, whatever it is. A lot of folks, that is their job. And for a lot of other folks, it's their second job that they need. It's jobs that people need.
That's less. That's not the effect.
Oh.
That's not the effect. The effect is that's how the majority of people are eating right now.
Yes.
So I'm talking about effect in terms of, I mean, this is starting to, like, people are trying to make the rolling blackouts like with Gray Davis 20 years ago when he got thrown out and Schwarzenegger became governor. Doesn't feel to me like there's that much of an appetite, but if you suddenly on Saturday, because I haven't even thought about this, if you see Uber, Lyft go away and Instacart, Postmates and everything, there's going to be a revolt, man. I mean, there's a literal revolt because, and there's on all sides because you're going to have people that are literally suddenly like not eating.
And I hadn't thought about it either, to tell you the truth. I mean, who drives the food orders?
All of them.
Right. So if they're not doing that anymore, who's going to do it?
So it's my job to say, wait a minute, are you being a little alarmist? What do you mean they're going to shut down? Do they get like is there a grace period of, we have to ramp up to make them employees where they can run out the clock until November?
No.
Well, what happens to them? Do they get, so let's say they don't. Let's say Instacart keeps going and Uber and Lyft shut down. Does their license get? Where does this become like there's not enough political courage to shut down Instacart, for example?
I'm not sure. I mean, what could happen, only Uber and Lyft are ordered to comply, right?
Right.
Those are the only companies who've been specifically ordered to do that. Could other companies keep going as is? They sure could.
And then Becerra could go after them and
Correct.
go to the same court and ask them to comply.
Correct. And how much support would there be for him politically if he did that?
Okay.
Zero.
I will be pleasantly surprised, and maybe this is just me being too cynical. I will be pleasantly surprised if there is an uproar, because I just feel we roll over and take it now. I feel we will bitch for a day, roll over and take it. Oh, okay, I guess can't get it delivered anymore. Oh, and I'm just going to bitch and moan, and I'm going to have to go out and get this stuff myself, because we don't fight anymore. Some, but not overwhelmingly, people are in for the fight for how we should be living. And so I will be pleasantly surprised if this is the one area where everyone does finally say enough.
It should be, because as the caller or the writer was talking, I mean, this is hugely important, especially during what we're going through right now. Fortunately, this is a presidential election season, so people are going to turn out. There are going to be more voters. They need to be informed.
And people see, especially on a subject like this, where, as Dawn pointed out earlier, most people have no idea what we're talking about outside of this show. You brought it to our attention earlier in the year, and it's not affecting most people for all the reasons we've talked about. When it starts affecting on the levels we're talking about, the ability to get a ride and the ability to get food delivered to you in these times, it seems like there's going to be that twist, that thing where your head's just going to explode, especially with everything else we're having to deal with.
I really hope so, because as you're saying that, I'm like, well, what has COVID done to us? COVID to me has taken away it's taken away just how you live. Yeah, and we all just roll over and go, well, whatever.
But people view it as they're being protected and they're staying safe and things like that. And
that
now
gives me a little hope.
The things that are literally keeping us alive almost, right? Hey, I'm not here to advocate for the American public and their courage, but
I just think we don't have it anymore. And prove me wrong, America.
Or just have the court make the right decision Friday and none of this will happen.
Correct.
Okay, why don't we go with that? Yes. Hi there, Jeff. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, go ahead.
Morning.
So I was just questioning if it affects realtors or not, because they're all 1099 employees for the most part, and some of these larger, real estate offices have, 100-plus employees.
Now, this is actually two different. We want to be very clear about this, because this is right now versus when we were talking about this originally. Right now, as you just said, only Uber and Lyft have been ordered to comply. We'll get a court decision on Friday, hopefully, about that. But when we were talking in January, whenever we were talking about this, technically the way it's written, would this affect realtors?
Yes, it'll affect everyone.
Everyone.
The problem is the second and third parts of the test. The second prong, the contractor has to be brought on to do something that is not within the employer's wheelhouse.
Why would you hire someone that's not in your wheelhouse?
Exactly.
And we did that game on the air, is that there's so many things that you could, like with me, there's so many things that we might hire somebody and you could say, well, that is in your wheelhouse. You do need a photographer. You do need a florist for background. I mean, it's like ridiculous the way it goes down. What about, how does a friend and I were talking about this over the weekend. What if your contractor, quote unquote, is out of state? Are they protected? Like, because a lot of people have contractors who are, they're just consultants, for example. But they're not outside the scope. They fall under the letter of the law. So do you still have to make them a California employee?
Yes.
Because they don't want that.
Right.
No, they don't.
The company doesn't want that. They don't want that. None of that.
The obligation is on the employer. So if the employer is in California, they have to comply. It has nothing to do with where the contractor is.
No. That is terrible.
And wait, I mean, this could be extended. Don't forget, a consultant essentially is a contractor. I mean, consultants could be wiped out too.
Right. Because if you're not allowed to be a contract, you're literally wiping out the actual line of work.
Right. If you're not an employee, what are you?
There's someone in our family, one of the sister-in-laws, she works from home, and not because of COVID, that's just what she does. And that is what she consults for so many people in so many different states. she'd be wiped out. They can't all make her an employee, and she doesn't want that, by the way. Her setup's good, from what I'm hearing, how you guys are talking. That would wipe that out.
This is the big overarching question that started all this. We got this email that says, whether or not the ruling is thrown out, how does this set precedent to the growing gig economy? Can you dumb down what the gig economy is for people that don't understand and then answer the question?
Essentially, it's people who don't want to commit. They don't want an employer. They want to work from home. They want to have multiple entities or people they work for or provide services to, right? They don't want the traditional kind of clock punching, go to the office sort of thing.
Freedom, independence.
The gig economy is based on the ability to be a contractor. The whole thing is premised on the ability to not be an employee, formally, but to be a contractor.
So the answer to his question is it entirely affects the gig economy.
It would kill it.
Whichever way it goes, it either kills it or it keeps it alive.
Correct.
And thrive.
So many salons now have those suites set up where you do walk in and there is someone who owns the building, but every single person, well, in a traditional salon, the same, right? They're renting out their space of their chair. Aren't they all contractors?
Yeah.
How does the salon afford to make all of those people employees?
That's
no
stickier,
way.
though, because a lot of salons, they rent the chair, right?
Yeah.
So they may not even be a contractor to the owner.
Okay.
The question would be, how much are they kicking to the owner of the salon, right? If they're paying anything up to that person, they'd probably be considered a contractor, but a lot of them rent the chair.
So in that case, they might be protected in that incident.
It would be a thin argument, but there's an argument to be made.
But back to the guy who called, realtors are going to have to become employees of Lion Real Estate. And that means Lion Real Estate is going to have to eliminate, 20% of their workforce in order to pay for the cost because when you have an employee, you have to burden their share of the taxes. You have to double the share of the taxes. And then you've got the benefits, which are defined, especially by the size of a company that maybe isn't offering benefits.
Correct.
Which will be extraordinarily expensive. And so my point being, if Prop 22 fails or if AB5 is somehow upheld, the base fallout of this is tons of job loss.
Correct.
Because that's the only way companies can stay in business.
Not just that, business loss, right? Because the businesses who can't afford to bring them on as employees can't keep them as contractors. So who's working for them?
What a dumb law.
Hello, Joe.
Hi, I caught in on the mid part of this conversation. Is Prop 22 just for California, or is it going more broadband on that?
Just California.
It just affects California in the literal sense, although there's two things. One, as I said, a lot of times, whether you like it or not, California then can creep to other parts. They set a precedent. They creep to other like-minded, like-thinking states. Also, as we were just talking, though, if you're in Nevada and you're a contractor for any company in California, if Prop 22 fails and AB5 is upheld, it is going to affect anybody in Reno right now that's listening who's a contractor with a California company would be affected by this, right? They would have to then pay more taxes, or how would it affect the employee now that's in Reno? Because they would now be on part of California's rolls if the company even kept them, right?
Right. They'd have to be a proper payroll employee. So they'd have to deal with the taxes and the benefits of the kicking into the California system and all that. They'd make less money.
Wow.
If they even kept the gig, which is the hard to imagine thing. Hi there, Jim. Go ahead.
Boy.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Hey, what's up?
Fabulous.
So I'm a contractor here in California. Me and along with a couple of other guys that I know that are business owners, we have guys that are specifically, we 1099 them. So I've got a couple guys, but I've got a buddy of mine who's a drywall guy, and all of his employees are 1099. He doesn't employ anybody as a payroll, so that's going to affect him as well, right?
Correct.
I've heard the construction industry, this is a big problem.
Right. Disaster. Because, the employer can only hire people as contractors who don't do what the employer does. So if you're a contractor, you could hire maybe a car detailer. Right? You can't hire anybody who does construction work.
But you can't hire a car detailer to do construction work.
Correct.
There's so many things to hate about this, and one of them is whoever, again, came up with this has decided themselves that no one wants this. These poor people, they need to be employees and have these benefits. You go in knowing, as you say, all these construction guys, they know exactly what it is, and they sign up for it. They're fine with it. But apparently, we're not allowed to do that. We can't make those decisions for ourselves. Oh, God. Everything is just control. I don't know. I'm going to do the tinfoil hat. It's just maddening.
This law, the purpose of it was to protect migrant workers. That's where it came from, right? And look what it's doing. this is a good example of maybe a decent idea turning into horrific law.
So the TikTok on this is Friday is the decision on whether or not Uber Lyft can proceed. And is the decision Friday meant to be like, yes, you can continue to proceed as is until the vote in November? That's what they're asking for?
It'll be a stay of the injunction.
So if they get a stay, we'll have Uber and Lyft. If they don't get a stay, we're probably not going to have Uber and Lyft Saturday morning or next week.
Correct.
And then we'll have to see what happens with Instacart, et cetera. The next thing after that is whether they get a stay or not, Proposition 22 is the next big thing.
Correct.
And if you hate everything that we've talked about in the last 30 minutes, you vote for Proposition 22. You vote yes on 22 to eliminate AB5.
Correct. If that's the way it's worded, yes. If its purpose is to eliminate AB5, vote yes.
confusing.
Please, I think everybody should.
Well,
I mean, that's
sometimes they do it that way on purpose. It
Yeah.
says Proposition 22 would override Assembly Bill 5. So that's the idea. You would vote yes on Prop 22. All right. And by the way, early voting begins October 5th, which is the other thing that about getting the education out, because a lot of people, they just go down like, oh, yes, no, and they don't pay attention. And if you don't start talking about it in August, people that are voting early don't even pay attention. Anything else, Kevin? We appreciate you coming by.
no.
Thank you as always, Super Attorney Kevin Hughey.
Covered a lot of ground.
We did. We ran out of time. More emails. We'll have Kevin back soon because apparently there's plenty of reasons to, because there's so much stupid going on in the world. That's Kevin Hughey from Hughey Phillips LLP. Thanks a lot,
Thank you
man.
all.